What's up, guys? I'm one of your hosts, Will, for the Dope Talk podcast. Now, real quick, can we call you guys Dope Talkers, Dope Mafia, Dope Gang? I don't know, but I'm thinking we should give the community a name, all the, supporters and people that have really gone out of their way to check out our podcast and give it a listen. And we really appreciate all you guys and everyone that's tuned in and even sent us messages of like love and support and, are excited about what we're doing. And we're excited too. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. This is episode 3 of the Dope Talk podcast. In this particular episode, we're going to cover a few things. The Super Bowl was a few weeks ago, so shout out to anybody that's listening in Philly, I'm sure, or Eagles fans, I guess. You guys are living on a high right now. And we were going to talk about a regional match that I shot last weekend as well and how I did there. Then looking forward to the 2-day match that I'll be shooting, MDT Frostbite, and, kind of my expectations for that. What I'm shooting, how I'm packing, what I'm training prior to shooting that match, how I'm sort of prepping for it. And then we'll also talk about travel in terms of with a firearm, specifically as it relates to flying with a firearm, what you need, what you don't need, and how Phil and I do it as we've both flown with firearms all over the country many, many times. And maybe you guys can pick something up. Maybe you guys are already experiencing that. But nonetheless, you know how it goes. A lot of fun, some seriousness, and hope you guys enjoy it, man. Without further ado, let's just get right to it.
What's up, dude? Happy Sunday.
I know. It's, Valentine's weekend. First Sunday without some football. So it's kind of bittersweet for me.
Oh, did you watch a game last week?
Yeah, dude. And I'm not gonna lie, I had made a bet that the Chiefs were gonna win. Not because I actually wanted them to win, but I just figured. I mean, dude, the script is written. The refs, the Kansas City refs. I mean, the Chiefs are gonna win, and that did not happen. I was super surprised. I lost $100, but whatever. It's all good.
Yeah, I watched. Dude, so it's funny. I grew up watching football with my dad.
Yeah.
He played the games every Sunday, and
Yeah.
growing up in Alaska, we didn't really have a team, so he just latched on to the 49ers like back in like Joe Montana. Like my first jersey when I played hockey was 16.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah, and so typically I only watch football during like the postseason, just
Okay.
because I'm not like a diehard football fan or NFL fan.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it, right? Especially when like the stakes start becoming super high.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was surprised. I didn't watch anything until the Super Bowl, and I was like, man, who's even playing in the Super Bowl? And I was like, the Chiefs and the Eagles, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh damn. I was like, isn't this a repeat from 2 years ago? And it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So shout out to anybody that may or may not be listening from Philly. You guys are Super Bowl champions and get bragging rights for the next year. And don't forget, you guys are also the same city that once upon a time booed Santa Claus. So, I mean, I don't know how happy we can feel for you guys, but it's all good.
Dope. So, dude, we were supposed to catch up last week after your one day where you won.
Yeah.
Dude, talk about it. What's up? Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. So I guess you said in the last one that you're gonna have to like live vicariously through me, right? So I'm like channeling my inner Vallejo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it was a 1-day PRS regional match. I shot production class, and anybody that's listening that was at the match and shot open, I'm sorry because I took your points. Because apparently when you win shooting a different division other than open, you get your points towards open first. So I got 100 open points, even though I won with a production gun. And then the second place got 96 open points, and then so on down the ladder. Second place was open. Actually, pretty much everybody was open under me until like the very end, more production shooters. But anyway, no, it was a good match, man. Like, finally kind of getting used to the production rifle, being that you can't, switch anything out. And I'm one of the biggest challenges for me thus far with this rifle or getting used to it anyway has been the trigger, because I've always been a Trigger Tech Diamond guy, and this is a Bix and Andy. So it's a very different feel. And I'm a 2-stage Diamond guy, and this is a single-stage Bix and Andy. So literally the complete opposite of what I'm used to. And I had shot a Bix and Andy years ago, like an NRL race gun years ago, like 2019, I want to say. And I wasn't like the biggest fan of it back then. And so I quickly switched to a Diamond because I was only shooting open back then. And now I'm definitely getting used to it, but I'm still not a huge fan of like all the over travel after it breaks. So that's been interesting to work out. Action wise, it's the CDG, which I ran last year in open division, like my other CDG action. So that was a seamless transition.
Did you talk about your production build on the last one? I can't remember.
No. I think I
Okay.
just briefly mentioned it, but I mean, it's the
Yeah.
MPA PMR Pro 2. So it's
Okay.
basically a CDG with a Matrix Pro 2 chassis and then a Bix and Andy trigger and then their barrel. And I'm shooting it in 6 GT with 109s because, I mean, that's like a GOAT combination.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the MSRP? Just right at $24.99?
No, $29.99. So the rifle has to be $3,000 and under, and the optic is 25 or under.
Wait, did that get you bumped up this year?
No, I got bumped up like last year or two years ago, I think. It was like the last year that Shannon was in charge of PRS when he bumped the price so that the Collis K624i would fit under the cap at $24.99. And then he bumped the production rifle price so that MPA and Gap and some of the other guys could make a better rifle for just a smidge more money. But yeah, once upon a time it was a $2,500 limit on the rifle as well. So
That's how much I pay attention. But at the end of the day, dude, Alwine winning, taking second place at the PRS finale with a savage, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I have no misnomers about the fact that like. And this isn't a slight against anybody. I get it, and I fully support build the best rifle you can with the money. And what MPA has been able to do is really amazing with the rifle that they've been able to put together. And I think for 3,000, like if you have a hard limit of 3,000 or under, like 2,800, whatever, I think that Matrix rifle, that PMR Pro 2, even if you don't intend to shoot it in production, is the best bang for the buck. I mean, you're getting a truly tier 1 chassis with like a really, really good action, a top end trigger. I mean, lots of guys, all the Okies shoot Bix and Andys. So, I mean, the trigger is obviously really good. And their barrel, for me, has shot really, really well. It's shot lights out. So, for $3,000, I don't think you can get a better rifle unless you just buy a bunch of, like, used parts and put it together yourself. But as far as like would I consider it my definition of a true production gun? Absolutely not. To me, it's a budget custom. And I've always said that. And that's not a slight against MPA. Even the Gap PPR I view the same way. It's a budget custom gun. It truly is. All wine with a Savage, that's a production gun to me. That is a true production gun. And the fact that he continues to win and do so well, shout out to you, because honestly, bro, next time I shoot a match with you, and I've shot with Matt a few times, I'm definitely going to bring like a wheelbarrow and just follow him around every time I squad with him so that he can keep his nuts in that wheelbarrow. Because, dude, you got to have like King Kong Ding Dong to roll around the PRS finale with a Savage, brother. So shout out to you.
Alan wants to jump on our podcast.
Dude, bring him on. Bring him on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
I got a lot of questions for that guy too.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be fun to have him on. I think he's good people. Him and I have been just chatting here and there last couple of weeks, just picking his brain with some NRL Hunter stuff. Dude, but that being said, dude, guess what I just got in the mail the other day?
Oh, you posted your Solus, right?
Well, not that, but something else.
Oh, yeah. The big daddy, Oh, mine's on my gun right now, but the triple pull Sky Pod, baby.
Bro, dude, man. And I got the RS Well, just the one that allows you to mount the RS adapter on it,
Right.
because they're the only ones in stock. The other their BTC head is out of stock. And John, because I jumped, he jumped, and he tried to grab the BTC one, but they're out of stock for like the next 8 weeks. And I'm like, dang. I was like, dude, just call him back but he has to cancel the order. And I was like, damn, that's like, why can't you just swap it out? But it is what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Damn.
Because I
Okay.
have I have a bunch of those, really right stuff heads that I could just
Yeah.
send down to him. But are you shooting Mason Valley?
No, no, I'm
No,
not.
but you're
No.
shooting Avenal.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason I didn't shoot Mason Valley, truthfully, is because that'd be 3 weekends in a row that I'm shooting 2 days, and I don't, I can't do that because the weekend after that, so I'm going to MDT this coming weekend. I leave Thursday.
Frostbite.
Yeah, Frostbite. And then I believe it would be Mason Valley. Then after that would be Avenal. So it's like, damn, dude, like, there's no way.
Cool. Well, let's take a couple of steps back. I don't want to dive. I want to focus on your match win here. I think it's important. So talk to me about like what your train up, or kind of getting the rifle ready, or even you ready for something like that, right? Like, and again, I think, I know you're a very experienced shooter, and I don't know who was at that match, but I think again, there's still value to the newer shooters out there in terms of like, okay, hey, what does somebody like Will, who has a lot of national level matches under his belt, even local level matches, like what does your process look like for getting ready to shoot a 1 day?
Okay, so I can't lie to you. This one was very different than normal. I actually did nothing. I haven't shot a gun since the first weekend of January, like at all. No range time, no nothing. Now, I don't advise that for other people, but the reason was because I got really busy, and I was just and then we had the fires down here in California, so that like canceled out a few of the other locals I was supposed to shoot in January. So as the weeks kept coming by, like it's like I'm signed up for a local, and then like a day or two before the local, it cancels because of the fires and then the smoke and all these other things. So I'm like, damn, like I'm waiting to shoot. So truthfully, I was just dry firing like the absolute most that I could at home. I have a DFAT with the indoor dry fire training system, like the roll up banner thing. And I'm not saying that that's a substitute for live rounds downrange, but in my particular case, like I shot this gun already at a 2-day in Arizona, which the gun shot great. I didn't. I was absolutely checked out. Like mentally, I could just not focus that match. Like I did absolutely terrible. One of my worst finishes. And but I had shot it in locals before that and like one after that. So I had like a good enough repertoire with it, especially because the action is the same as my open gun CDG. So I didn't have to really get used to a different action. And so I was just dry firing it to get used to that trigger, dry fire, dry fire, dry fire. And then that was pretty much it, man. I went to the match that morning. I zeroed my optic and because I'd pulled it off. And then I chronoed, and that was pretty much it. Like it was like a known load to me that I had been already shooting, like very consistent with burgers, alpha brass, the whole thing. So I didn't have any questions about that, and I just went in super focused. But I will say one thing that I did different, and I had made it a concerted effort to try this because and I want to shout out Francis Cologne, who talked about this, also a phenomenal shooter. But I always double up my ear pro. I wear like electronic in ears and then my MSA Sordens over the ears. So that's normal for me. But what I did for my in ears this time was I actually wore my AirPods. And I would when I could feel myself kind of drifting a little bit, I'd play music. And it kind of like helped me refocus a little bit and just keep that. Because in a regional, it's not as bad but I wanted to try it out, especially for a 2-day, and so I'm gonna do it at MDT this weekend because I know that 2 days are a little bit longer, especially the back half of that second day. I mean, you've been shooting so many rounds already that I know for me, like I've always had a problem putting 2 consistent days together. Like I can stay really focused the first day, but I really start to tail off that second day. And so it actually worked really well for me. Like I remember specifically thinking to myself, I have 2 stages left. I'm in a pretty good spot. I had only dropped going into the last 2 stages. I had only dropped 3 points all day. So I was like, okay, like whoever's up there with me, I was concerned about a couple of other people, Jose and Cole. They're really good shooters. You shot with Jose. We all at the Washington match, and Cole is a guy that he's also a really good shooter. John knows him a little bit because he shoots down with us at Paula. So they were in a different squad than me, but I'm just kind of like in my head, like, okay, those guys have to be having a pretty spot on day because I'm only down 3 for the day so far. And then I was like, okay, let me like put some music in. I could kind of like see I'm getting a little distracted, starting to look around at other people, stuff like that. So just popped in a couple songs and just kind of like sat in my zone for a little bit. Then I cleaned the next stage. And then the last stage, I dropped 2, which was my worst stage of the day. I went 8 out of 10. Yeah.
I mean, how was the course of fire? Was it a meatball? And is the match director, is he relative in the sense that like, does he compete or he's just kind of throwing stuff together?
So Scott is our match director. And first of all, shout out to Scott for undertaking match directing because that's not an easy task for anybody. Scott is not a PRS competitor. He's like a bench shooter, which, I mean, I don't necessarily think is like the worst thing in the world, but I do think that some creativity and seeing how to do different things and gaining experience does come from shooting matches as a match director. In terms of the actual course of fire, I look at that range as like most of it is probably meatball. I mean, I've shot there for, I don't know, 4 years now. So like I know the lay of the land. Like they don't really move the targets much. Obviously I'm used to the wind and things like that. So when I looked at the course of fire that morning, I was like, okay, truthfully, just on the surface without actually seeing it, but just reading the course of fire, I was like, truthfully, like this is probably a cleanable match. Like a really top level dude, like, I don't know, certain 2018 Phil Vallejo or like any
Where's he at?
Yeah, I don't know. We're all looking for that guy. With the but I do think that like I would look at that and say, okay, like a Morgan King or like a Clay or somebody, they would walk in and just clean it. Like I don't think that they would not clean the course of fire. And truthfully, the only points that I did drop were on me. Like I made 3 mental errors that were easily like cleaned up in my post stage process where I was like, oh, okay, like I should have done this, etc.
Describe the mental errors. Bad, like okay. Wrong dope, wrong shooting, wrong target.
Yeah. So I'll give you a good example. On stage 1, it was a barricade stage, but you're shooting a KYL rack off the barricade.
Okay.
But you're not going in order of left to right on the KYL rack. You're going big, small. So you're basically going like
you're working your way inwards.
Working your way inwards.
Yeah. Okay.
But except for the last position. The last position, you go back to the 4th target for your first shot, and then your last shot is back on the very first target, the biggest one.
Okay.
And the plates, the way that he wrote it in the match book is he wrote it based on the plate color because they were painted a certain color. So it was like shoot the red one, which is the biggest one, and then shoot the light blue. So
which is the far end one.
But the middle plate was also blue, but it was a dark blue. And what I should have done was I should have just wrote it down on my dope in numbers, plate 1 and plate 4, or plate 1 and plate 5, or 2 and 3, or whatever the sequence is. And instead, I wrote it in terms of the colors. But by the time I shot it, it was all shot to shit. And so like I couldn't really distinguish what color was what.
So you shot. So you
So
shot the.
on one
You
of
shot
them,
the dark blue.
yeah, on one of them I shot the dark blue, and I was like, "Oh, you idiot!" It's the other one. So and then I ended on the big red one. So that was down 1 point for me. Otherwise, I would have cleaned it because I had already hit that small one once in a previous position. But yeah. So that was one mental error, and then another mental error that I had was so tank trap.
Okay.
So and it's interesting because this is what happens when you're somebody like me that's like constantly changing gear, right? And so the two scopes that I've been bouncing back and forth with for production class is my Collis K624i with left side windage and my Mark V Leupold that's obviously right side windage. This match I shot my Mark V. The last match I shot my Collis.
Okay.
So, and the way that you dial wind is the exact opposite.
Opposite, yeah.
And that's what I did. Because
yeah, okay.
Exactly. So I missed my. I had wind dialed in my gun for the first shot. So I had a tenth of wind dialed in my gun for the first shot off the tank trap. I miss off the left. Okay. So I'm like, okay, cool. I need to add more wind, but I dialed it the wrong way because I'm used to the Collis. And then I'm like, oh, you idiot. So and then I went with the next 8 after I realized that. So that was like that's part of I guess that's mostly a me problem because people don't really switch scopes like that. You know, but that was one of those where I'm just like, oh man.
Dude, at the I think it was 2020 or 21. It was the finale down in New Mexico where Derek Love MD'd it.
Okay, yeah.
And he got crucified because of the sandwiches.
Yeah.
First shot, dude, the first shot of the match, it was a KYL rack. I dialed the wrong direction on the big plate, bro. First, and thankfully I caught it, but like it was just like, you know, I mean, first stage, first match, or first, you know, it's the PRS finale. I was squatted with like Patrick Young and Phil Cashin.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, like the guys up in front of me are like cleaning it and whatnot. I'm like, okay, well, like obviously, you know, I think it was only a squad like 4 or 5, right? So I rolled in the top 50, you know, so, you know, the shooters there are pretty good. And you're already kind of feeling the heat when guys up there are doing well. And dude, yeah, I remember sending it and I'm like, oh my God, just I think it was like way left. And I'm like, you freaking idiot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a costly one because that's basically a freebie. The big plate on a KYL is usually a freebie. It's usually a gimme.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so mental errors like that, and I just was like, okay, like, you know, totally something that I can clean up. This MDT match that I'm going to, I'm just gonna roll with the Leupold Mark V because it's already zeroed on my gun. I shot it the last match, and I don't want to go do the same thing again and then shoot the Collis at MDT, and then I'm dialing the wrong way for wind again. So I'm gonna leave that on there for this next particular match. And it's interesting. So I leave Thursday, which means I have Monday, Tuesday, and a little bit of Wednesday to kind of, you know, regather myself, prep a little bit. And it's one of those where I'm like, I feel good because obviously I just won a match. Not like the hardest match I've ever shot by any stretch of the imagination, but nonetheless, a win.
No, it's a confidence booster, right? So
100%.
you know, I think there's value to that when you start doing well, and you know, and I think it's also maintaining a headspace that allows you to, you know, give yourself some room for the emotion roller coaster, right? Because I know I've been guilty of like doing really well at a match or winning it, right? Like the PRS finale in
Mm-hmm.
2018 when I cleaned day two Course of Fire
Yeah.
and just completely shitting the bed the next match, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
ego is like stripped. So I think there's a delicate balance of like feeling confident and comfortable versus just like, overconfident and like, you're like, oh, I got this. When really, I think it just boils down to, sticking to the processes that you have that you've already, talked about. I'm curious to see what does your dry fire at home look like? I know we always say dry fire, but
Yeah.
is that like 5-10 minutes? Is it prone? Is it positional stuff?
Yeah, so it's definitely my minimum session is probably 30 minutes, but I've done dry fires for like an hour or two. And I probably do those quite often. And so usually what I'll do is I always just start in the prone, and really what I want to see is the reticle jump right on the trigger brake. And as soon as I can nail down, what I'll do is I'll just start off nice and slow, 10 shots, making sure there's no reticle jump on the dry fire target. And for those of you that don't know or that may be listening, um, indoor dry fire training systems, IDTS, they sell like a roll up banner that's got like a bunch of different like what would scale out to like 1 MOA, 2 MOA. They got a KYL rack, coyote targets. They got a bunch of different targets on there. So I always start on the KYL rack, and I'll usually start at one of the 3 smallest plates, depending on how rusty I am. And I'll just make sure that reticle is not moving. A nice, clean trigger squeeze, and nice and slow racking the bolt. And I'll do that 10 times until I get all 10 with no reticle movement. And if your reticle's jumping, usually I'll just kind of take a step back and think like, okay, what's different? Is my positioning different? Is the way I'm pulling the trigger different? All that kind of stuff, just to kind of examine some of that. And then I'll start to go faster in the prone. And then by then, I'm like, okay, I'm racking the bolt like fast, like as if it was like a 60-second mad minute type of stage, which I personally am not a fan of those stages, but nonetheless, like that's the pace that I want, so that I know in a time crunch, I can pick up the pace if I need to, but I can also shoot slow. And then from there, I'll come off my belly and I'll bust out a ladder like a step stool, and I'll start doing positional. And really the way that I personally think of positional, and I've learned this from like a few really good shooters, is when I look at a prop, I never look at, damn, I don't know how to shoot off of this prop. Because I don't care what the prop is. I know how to shoot heights. And I'll just look at the prop and I can determine, or I'll like stand next to it and I'll literally get down on like, oh, this is a low kneeling for me. I know how to shoot low kneeling. Like I can build that. I don't care if it's, rocks or a step stool or a kung fu ladder or whatever the case is. So I look at everything in sections. This is a standing for me. This is a high kneeling. This is a low kneeling. This is a sitting. This is a high prone. And that really takes away from some of the, like I'll see new shooters be like, damn, how are we supposed to shoot off of that thing when it's some crazy contraption that they've never seen before? And I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Like if you've shot kneeling before, you can shoot off of this because it's the same height. And so that's what I'll do is I'll practice my heights on that ladder where I'm like, okay, I'll start in like and I purposely make it awkward. Like it'll be one of those where I'm like, it's like way too high for like a high prone, but it's like really low kneeling, so I'm like really like yogaed out on the bottom, like work on my flexibility, like that type of like not squat sitting, but like really got your like legs spread out, like your knees, and kind of hurts, but like so I'll shoot that, then I'll come up to low kneeling, then I'll come up to high kneeling, then I'll do standing, and then I'll do different angles. So like I'll turn the step stool sideways, like literally lay it on its side so it's now slanted, and I'll work top to bottom in case we have to shoot off like a slanted cattle gate or something like that. And I always do it one bag. I don't ever dry fire with like tripod rear or anything like that because typically I'm a one bag shooter anyway, but I just feel like dry fire in and of itself, like obviously there's some disadvantages, right? There's no wind, there's no recoil, so I don't want to like, I want to learn how to shoot all that with one bag as opposed to make my position even more solid with rear tripod. in a dry fire, because then it's like it's like too stable, if that makes sense. Like I feel like you're not gonna learn anything from that other than how to get in position with the tripod and maneuver it. But I feel confident in my ability to maneuver a tripod and deploy it and put it in the proper position. So I don't particularly do that. But yeah,
assuming the ground is flat.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I'm being an asshole and devil's advocate. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think, there's value to, like especially tripod rear. Like I think a lot of people underestimate the deployment of it and understanding of like how to actually set it up versus like, when they dry fire or they go to the range and they practice it a little bit, they kind of, they do it in a very controlled environment where they're like, oh, this is, slide it over here, they take a couple shots, but I don't think they actually run a stage with it.
Yeah.
Right. And they quickly find out when they're doing it under time, how stressful it is to actually manage, right? Because now as you're messing with the tripod rear and it's not going your way, right? Now immediately you're in a time sunk, right? And this is assuming that you've already committed to a front plate bag.
Yeah.
You didn't bring a
No
second bag. Yeah, there's no going back, right? And dude, it's funny. I will. So, do you do this off topic from your dry fire here? But do you do this? Is where if I know like prior to, the stage, or like if I'm gonna be the guy like the backpack guy. If I'm gonna be the guy that's only running tripod rear and everyone else is one bagging it, I'm like, no, I'm gonna get my hits. What I'll do is I'll bring an extra bag and I'll throw it off to the side so that in the case the tripod rear doesn't work, like if I just decided to ditch it, I'll just pick up the the game changer. And I mean the front is super heavy, but at that point I just try to salvage what I can.
Yeah. I mean, I've only ever done that when I know that another position is going to require a bag instead of a tripod rear for whatever case. Maybe that other position is too tight to get a tripod in there.
Yeah.
But as a backup plan, nah, man. If I'm committed to tripod rear, I'm committed, bro, and I'm going all the way with it. Usually, I have. And this broaches another topic that I want to talk about on a different podcast. But I have, in some instances, actually used both a bag and a plate bag, like on top of each other. Like if the plate bag isn't high enough, or if it's something like at the San Luis match at San Luis Obispo at the 2-day over there, they had this one prop that, like, I don't even know what it is. It's kind of like a cattle gate, but it's like tips. And you have to shoot off the 3 tips. But the problem is that you can't put a plate bag on the tip without getting a lot of cant, and it's super wobbly. So game changer on top of the tip, and then plate bag on top of the game changer with tripod rear. Now you have to move both, but that's really the only way to shoot that, unless you're gonna like just single bag it. But the single bag is just really awkward on that because it's also not very stable. So I have done stuff like that, which I learned from watching other really good shooters, and I it's interesting. So one thing that I want to talk about in a different podcast though is super squatting, because I am in a super squad for MDT Frostbite, and I always hear in the community that like shoots 2-day matches, whether it's like new guys, mid pack, whatever. It's always they're just the super squad. They're just the super squad, and I see both sides of it, but nonetheless, I did learn that by super squatting and watching other really good shooters that have a lot of experience shooting off of these different props. So, but as far as tripod rear, nah, man, I'm committed. Once I'm in there with a plate bag and a tripod, I'm like, whatever, dude. This is gonna be it.
To the only thing that I'll say to your height, I like that you said that, because you're absolutely right. Like that's how I look at different heights of where I have to shoot from. Right. I think a couple things that comes with experience. Number one is obviously bag placement, right? With regard to rocks and like making sure that you have, you maximize surface area contact, that your bag like it warps and grabs the rock the way that you want it to, right? And then magazine clearance. And then the second thing would be pressures, right? And I think we can both agree that the way that I apply pressure to, let's say, two tires, right, stacked on top of each other, where it's like, hey, I can't use a bipod. I have to run off the edge, of the tread at a high kneeling. That's a lot different pressure that I'm putting than if I had the same height with rocks.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, because like that part definitely comes with experience of shooting off of different props, because I never knew how to shoot off of tires until I shot off of tires. I never knew how to shoot a mover until I actually shot a mover, and different things like that. And, that's of course, there's a lot of things that you learn just through experience in terms of the super fine intricacies of how to shoot certain things and how to shoot certain props and positions. But the basics that I always tell new guys, because I feel like I've shot with a bunch of new guys, especially at the locals, which is great because I love, shooting with new shooters and talking to them and helping out where I can. But I see them like psych themselves out a lot. Like, oh man, I've never shot off of something like this before. And that's why I started looking at it like, even when I go to 2 days and I see props that I've never shot off of before, positions I've never done before, whatever, like I didn't ever want to psych myself out and be like, oh man, I don't know how to shoot off of one of those. It's like, well, if you know how to do kneeling, you know how to do kneeling, period. Like it's, yes, the pressures might be a little bit different. The positioning might be a little bit different. Bag placement might be a little bit different. Some of those finer details, but the general idea of how to attack this, and then from there really watch and study the guys in front of you. And I'll watch a lot of people in front of me, not just the good shooters, but also like the newer shooters, because it's like the good shooters are going to shoot it one way, and chances are like they'll attack it properly, like the experienced shooters. But then I'll also watch the new guys for little things of what not to do. And I don't mean to put new shooters on blast, but like a lot of times you can see them like make certain mistakes, and maybe you were thinking about doing something similar and you're like, oh yeah, that didn't work. Okay, not going to do that. You could find that with experienced shooters too, but I feel like when you're really talking at like the high level, experienced shooters make less positional mistakes, really, and the top shooters are just all separated for the majority by their mental mistakes and who makes the least over the 2 days. But I always love to watch as many shooters from top to bottom as I can, because I feel like it's kind of like watching game film. Like I can pick up from little things from anybody.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. I think a big part of what people I think don't do enough is watch shooters, right? They're so focused on jumping on glass, and sure, like getting on glass and observing and trying to see what the wind is doing and stuff like that. But I think there's the delicate balance of like, okay, well, especially if you are a new shooter, I cannot stress this enough. Like, try to pair your experience level with somebody else in the squad that gives you a realistic expectation of how you might complete a course of fire. And I say that, for like, I think we're at a point now where match directors, even though they try to like make a stage where like everyone's going to time out, the top like 1% of the field, like the Alwines, the Gossets, the Kings, they're never going to time out, right?
Right.
But the other 90%, like, sure, the match director put that specific course of fire in place so that it's like, hey, this, the other 90% are probably going to time out for this course of fire. So with that being said, if you're like new in the pack, like, figure out or pair yourself with somebody in your squad and be like, okay, hey, I think I shoot at this person's level. So if they're in front of you, or if they shoot in front of you, if they're especially like in a very, complex stage, watch them and then time them And then, you're like, oh man, that dude got to position 4 and him and I are in the same, like, so there's no sense in me trying to get to all 5 positions if he only got to position 4 and got a 4, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, I'm just going to take my sweet time. If I get to the 5th position, right, I'll be good. But at that point, I would just manage my time for 4 positions or even 3, making sure that I get good, clean, hits or impacts. And that's the advice I usually tell my students when they come through like a intro to competition class. Is because, again, everyone, like, I think we all go through the phase of we start off, we suck, we're timing out all the time, so we're like, oh, I just need to get faster, right?
Yeah.
So when we practice, we go like freaking full speed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's good because now we're able to pick up some more impacts, but now we're going so fast to where we're getting 70% and we have 30 seconds left. And this is where I was at. I was like, okay, well, I need to slow back down to Nick Godarzi's speed to where, like, I'm breaking my last shot at that 89 seconds. Would you agree with that kind of like ebb and flow of experience level?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's similar to literally. I think it runs parallel to new shooters wanting to shoot faster bullets to beat the wind, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking, if I move faster and I shoot faster, I can get more hits and I'll finish the course faster. And if I shoot a faster caliber, like a 6 Creed with 115 DTACs at like 3100, like just burning your throat, I'm gonna get more hits because I can cheat the wind. And it's not like that. And I definitely went through some of that. Luckily, and this is the one thing that I will say to kind of bring the other side of the coin to what you're saying about, like, look at a shooter comparable to you, right? So I always do 2 things. I'll look at a shooter comparable to me, but I always try to squad with shooters way better than me. And because, like, for me, I always looked at it like, especially when I was like playing sports in like high school and stuff, and we'd be in practice or whatever, like, I just felt like you don't get better unless you play with or against people that are better than you. And that's how you learn, and that's how you elevate your game. Because if you just stay in that safe area of, like, this is my, like, these are my peers, and we just kind of, one beats one, switching back and forth, like, it takes longer, assuming both of you guys are super dedicated, to ramp each other up versus, I'm going to go shoot with, I don't know, Jake Vibert, who's like an all-time wins leader. Like, I'm going to go and watch and see what he does. And, like, yeah, he might clean a stage that I can only get 6 points on, but I know that at some point it's cleanable for somebody, like, these guys aren't superhumans. They're not, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like, they're not superhuman athletes. They're not LeBron. Like, they don't have mystical athletic abilities or powers or physical advantages that the rest of us don't have. Like, they're not running 4.140s, or they're not 6'7", 280-pound, like, behemoths. Like, it's like, if they can do it, I always looked at it that way. If they can do it, so can I. Now, do I need more practice and more experience? Sure, but it's an achievable level if I put in the work. And so I'll look at people that are close to me in terms of skill, as far as what a expectation is for a stage for me. But then, like, so for example, Frostbite, I'm squatted with Chad and Francis and Ken Sanoski, Cole Mitchell, Ryan McLean, and like a few other guys. And I'm like, okay, like, can I clean a barricade as fast as Chad or Francis? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And am I going to try to do that at MDT? No, I'm not, because that's not where I am right now. But I'm also going to look at it as, like, okay, if they can clean it in, 35, 40 seconds, 45 seconds, like, why can't I clean it in 60 seconds? Like, take my time, but it's a cleanable stage. Then on the flip side, if I have a stage where I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, Cole and I shoot pretty similar, and he's in my squad, and, Chad and Francis say clean a stage, and they get a 10 out of 10, and Cole gets an 8 out of 10. I'm like, okay, like, I'll be okay with an 8. I'm going to shoot for a 10, but I want to see why. Like, did he not get to the last position? Was it just wind? Whatever the case is. But it's interesting how, like, everybody kind of gauges themselves a little bit different. And I tell people, like, if you want to, because I guess it's a different purpose for everybody, right? Like, some people are just out there to have fun, and it's a relaxing time, and they're not really concerned, or they don't have the aspirations to necessarily be like the best shooter in the world. Like, they don't have that, and that's fine. But for the people that really want to dedicate time and effort and money into this and really get to that pinnacle, then I do believe that, like, you have to shoot with all the people better than you, and you have to shoot everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't stay in a pocket because you learn so much. Like, so I've never been to Frostbite. I've never been to Indiana. So, like, I'm going. I always try to shoot matches that I've never been to so that I can go everywhere and really get a lot of experience in a bunch of different situations, so that when I come back to my bubble in Southern California, honestly, it's just that much easier.
Yeah. No, those are good points. I think the only thing I would add to, you essentially pairing up with people that are better than you is, obviously the new shooter that is just getting in probably doesn't know who's good and who's not, right?
Fair.
Like that. Remember that guy in our squad, Brant? That was his first match.
Arthur.
Arthur, yeah. Like, he had no idea. Yeah, he had no idea who anyone was, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's like, if he's looking at the roster, it's like, who do I sign? Like, obviously, I think depending on how much you're paying attention to the sport or whatever the case might be, I think you'd be able to. But I think even some of the top, let's say, 20 or 30 guys at a match are very, like, you wouldn't know to squad with them.
Yeah.
Because you don't know their name. They're not winning podiums consistently, but they're consistently in the top 10.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're just they haven't broken through the mental game as King has, or as, Preston or Gain, any of the Okies, right? Yeah. Cool. So 6GT at Frostbite, 109s.
Yeah.
You have to load this? Are you all loaded for this week?
No, I got to load. So this was kind of like what I was gonna do is I'm gonna hit the range one day before I leave, to just go over everything. I mean, obviously my gun was shooting good, and I shot rounds at the end of the match. Like, after the match was over, I ran a few more over the chrono at the regional one day that I won last weekend. Just to make sure everything was still where it was at the beginning of the day, nothing weird going on, and it was great. So I'm gonna go to the range. I'm gonna shoot maybe 10 to 15 rounds. Like, I don't want to spend a whole practice day like out there necessarily and psych myself out. Like, I feel mentally I'm in a good place where I have confidence, but I am not overconfident, if that makes sense. But looking at the field, it's gonna be a good match, a tough field. Regardless of production or open class. I am shooting production division, but there's some good production shooters there as well. Laurel Aikenhead is going to be there, and some other ones. So, I would say this is not a freebie production, like some matches are where you, like, get points by default because nobody else showed up. But regardless, I don't necessarily look at it that way. Like, I'm shooting production because I thought it'd be a cool venture and a cool, like, YouTube vlog to do, but I am grading myself still in the overall open standings, and so it's like I feel good about right now where I am in terms of my wind reading ability, and even though we didn't have a ton of wind at the match that I just shot, I was able to get, obviously, clean a good number of stages and get a lot of first-round hits. So I feel good about that. And even going back to the last match that I shot in January, which I also shot the production gun, I got second place in that one. And truthfully, the only reason I got second place was because of the pistol stages, because I suck at pistol. So I don't even look at that one as like a true second place, truthfully. And that's not to discredit anybody else, but like in terms of just pure like rifle skill, I probably would have won. Because there was 2 pistol stages that were worth points. And that's fine. I knew that going into the match, but I just suck at pistol. So, I mean, what do you want me to do? But the point is like two matches now, I feel good about my wind reading. I've always felt good about my position building and you know, how to attack a stage and sort of that mental process. I am very now in tune with my timer as well. I know that you still have yet to really like put that into practice, but now that I've shot it I shot it really I got my timer when it first came out at the back half of last season, shot it the rest of like the second half of last season, and then going into this year. So I've had like, you know, six months with it or whatever, however long it's been. And I'm really in tune with it to really help me manage my time. And I noticed that at the last match on that KYL stage, because when I hit the 4th to last target on that KYL, it was spinning like crazy. And I looked at my timer because I had seen guys before me and they were like, damn, and they were just trying to time a shot to like hit it because they felt like they were going to run out of time to move to the next position. But for me, took my time, looked at my timer, and I was like, okay, I could sit here. And I literally probably waited like 8 or 10 seconds for that thing to come back down to the point where it was just swaying back and forth instead of spinning over the top of itself. And then I hit it. And so like that one, I was like, yeah, man, thank God I have a timer for this. And I still managed to, you know, go the rest of the way through the stage, didn't time out or anything. So, like I'm kind of just in a really like zen place with everything, if that makes sense.
Nice.
So,
well, I think this would also be a great opportunity. Well, first off, I think before I shift gears, I think that's awesome because I know exactly how you're feeling and what you're feeling. I think, again, it's those small little confidence boosts that we can give ourselves in preparation for something like this. Because, you know, like you said, like, you know, you're investing a lot of time and energy going to a match, right? Like one thing that like I always found funny was when people are like, oh yeah, you know, even if I shot like crap, I was still able to hang with my buddies. Yeah. Sure. Like if you want to tell yourself that, I absolutely get it because you had a horrible show, but you don't have to spend $5,000 or whatever a match to hang out with your boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think at the end of the day, we all have skin in the game, and it's just understanding, okay, what level of skin or commitment do I have? Can I put into this? Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think the steps you're going about, you know, gaining these confidence. I mean, if you look at some of these shooters, like I'm following Corson Piper, dude, and he's just like every weekend, man, that dude, he's just killing it, right? Like he shot Gravestone 2 weekends ago, and then this last week he was shot a local at his just right down the street. And I mean it's that just compounds, right? And I could see Corson just being completely unstoppable. I mean, again, I have a little bit of FOMO, but you know, Corson's a super genuine dude. I love shooting the shit with him. I'd love to squad with him. That's one person I haven't squatted with, but yeah, I want to shift gears. Since you are going to Frostbite, I think a common question that I know I get is how to pack for travel for a match, right?
Yeah.
And you know what airlines you're using, and I mean, you fly in and out of California, right? And like, you know, if you've missed the episodes before, if you're just jumping on to the Dope Talk podcast, you know, make sure you cruise on to episode 1 so you can hear Will's backstory. But I mean, Will's flying in and out of California. So walk us through the process of how you pack for, like what you're checking in and what you're carrying on.
Yeah. So, and first of all, disclaimer: I don't want this to be like the absolute like end all be all of advice. This is just how I do it, and I've been okay doing it thus far. And I've been flying to matches since 2018. And I've flown to I've flown with my rifle at least 40 times by now, at least, if not closer to 50 or 60 times for either matches or some other event where I have to bring a rifle. But so essentially, I usually always fly Southwest, and this may vary for different people, but I don't have status with any airline. So the reason that I choose Southwest is because you get 2 bags checked for free. So one is my rifle case, and then the other one is my check bag with all my clothes and stuff. And that ends up being like the cheapest option for me. But I know other people have status with like Delta or some other airlines where you get that included. So that may not really matter to you. And what I do for my carry-on is that's my actual match backpack. So everything is fit in there somehow, some way. Now, what I tend to do, because obviously our rifles are heavy, is my Pelican and my...
So 1750, right?
Yes, 1750, which is like the big one. Unless I'm traveling with a folder, then I'll use a 1720, and I can get a folder in there, a folding stock. But so I'll pack my rifle in there, and depending on the configuration of the rifle, sometimes I can get my double pull SkyPod in there, because I always carry 2 bipods. I carry a double pull SkyPod and a Thunder Beast, but I don't have both of them in the case. So first of all, we'll start with the rifle case. I'll have my rifle in there. If I need to lose weight, I'll pull the optic off. That's the first thing I pull off, because that's like usually about 3 pounds, regardless of what scope you're using by the time you count the mount. So I'll just pull the scope and the mount off, and I'll throw that in my luggage. I'll wrap it in like my hoodies and my sweaters and like really pack it nice and tight inside my checked bag. And that'll save me weight. If I am good on weight with that, then I'll put a bipod in there. I try to put my double pull SkyPod in there because that's the heavier of the 2. If not, I'll throw my Thunder Beast in there, and then the other one goes in my checked bag. From there, now people can do what they do, and again, disclaimer: I'm not saying this is gonna work for everybody, but I put all my ammo in my checked bag. I don't put any ammo in my rifle case.
Okay.
And
but you can. But I'll be clear that you can do that. You are authorized to do that.
Yes.
Is put your ammunition, as long as it's in plastic cases or its original packaging
from the manufacturer.
Yes. Right? You can put that in there. Okay, so
Yes.
all of your checked ammo, all of your ammo goes into your secondary check bag.
Yes, with my clothes and everything else. And the particular bag that I use, the checked luggage bag that I use, is actually a roller duffel that has a bottom like hard shell compartment. And so all my shooting gear goes in that bottom hard shell compartment, and then my clothes and stuff go on the top, like more duffel style, like ballistic nylon compartment. And so in that bottom hard shell compartment of gear, I've got one of my bipods, whichever one didn't fit in my rifle case. I've got my ammo, which normally I bring, obviously, whatever the course of fire dictates, plus 50 rounds. So if the course of fire dictates 200, I'll bring 250 rounds. If it dictates 250, like at Nut Crusher, then I'll bring 300 rounds. And I put those in if you ever bought Alpha Brass, it just comes in the 100 round like MTM boxes. And I'll just put like blue packing tape on it. And like just to like make sure it's like closed, and that way I can just cut it open when I get there. But yeah, so I'll just wrap it in blue painter's tape. And just blue painter's tape. I'll just put like a couple rolls of painter's tape around the cases to make sure the ammo stays closed. I'll put my my belt that's got like my holsters and my dump pouch and stuff. I'll put that in there. I'll put my boots in there as well. And then depending on which tripod I'm bringing, I'll also put my tripod in that, or I'll put my tripod as my carry-on. It like strapped to my carry-on backpack, which is my match backpack. Then in my match backpack, is where I put everything. I put my game changers. Some matches I carry 1, some matches I carry 2, just depending on the territory that I'm going to, what region I'm shooting in. So my carry-on backpack is heavy as shit. It's at least 50 pounds. And it sucks humping it through the airport. It absolutely does. Like sometimes when I need to make weight, I'll actually take the weights off my rifle and throw them in my carry-on backpack too. So I'll have, 3-4 pounds of weights in my backpack. Like take them off the chassis, at least the external ones. Mm-hmm. And then I'll put my 2 game changers in there. When I do bring 2 game changers, it's usually a +1 schmedium and then a schmedium. So that in and of itself is 15 pounds of bags. And then all my tools in there. I bring my Fix-It Sticks kit in there. My Ear Pro is in there. My binos are in there. Literally
all your expensive stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Aside from rifle and optic, is in my carry-on because I need that to stay with me, and I don't want some TSA guy to just throw it in there. So that's,
I think for a podcast, I mean, because we are doing podcasts, I think unless you already have a gear list that you can, I mean, honestly, yeah, you can. There's no point in doing that, but it'd be cool to do a podcast for the guys that are watching, where like we go through our gear on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can just check out our individual channels. We have a pack. Do you have pack dumps?
I do. I haven't done one for a while. Like my last pack dump, I think was like 2 years ago, but I do need to do a new one.
You should do a pack dump for Frostbite, like all this stuff, because right, like I mean, that's just a general. All people are always asking like, what can I bring and what should I bring or how can I travel stuff? Yeah, but no, I mean, your packing seems very similar to mine in a sense. Mm-hmm. So, I want you to talk about locks real quick. What is your experience with locks in TSA?
Yeah. So to everybody out there that's curious, on your actual Pelican case, it has to be locked. Do not ever use TSA locks. You just use regular padlocks. So I have like some heavy duty master locks, and you are the only one to be able to have the keys to that. Now, depending on the different airports, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So I fly out of 2 airports here in California mainly. I either LAX or Burbank, but some airports, and it sucks, but like at LAX, no matter how much you like argue with them, they won't let you in the back room when they inspect the rifle. So I have to hand them the keys. So when I go to the check-in counter, I tell them I'm declaring a firearm. I fill out the little form. I open it up and I put the form in there, and then they take the case, and I follow them to the door of where the back room is, and then they'll go in there, and then they always argue, oh, it's against policy, this and that, blah blah blah, for like non-authorized employees to come in this back room, whatever. And truthfully, I don't feel like sitting there for like 45 minutes or an hour arguing and waiting for upper management to come and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I've done it so many times, and I'm like, all right, here's the keys, like whatever. And so I give them the keys. They'll do what they do, throw it through the X-ray or sometimes pull it open and inspect it. And so far, I haven't had any issues, knock on wood, doing that. And but there have been other airports where I tell them like, oh, I want to go in the back room with you, and they've been fine with it, and I'll just go there, and they'll have me like stand at the doorway but like leave the door open so I could see them, just inspecting it and wiping it down for residue and all that kind of stuff, and that's been fine. But yeah, as far as locks, master locks or your preferred brand of heavy duty locks, and what I do for the keys is I actually put them on a lanyard, and I wear it around my neck like a necklace. So I never lose them. I never misplace them. They don't fall out of my pocket, that kind of stuff. And then what I do when I get to the hotel of wherever I'm at, I take off all the locks, and then I padlock all 4 of them like to each other. And then the last one, I'll actually padlock the lanyard with the keys to it, so it's all in one stack. So I can't misplace the keys in the room or misplace one of the locks or anything like that. And then
that's a good system.
Yeah.
That's solid. No, that's, I mean, do that. Well, I don't put the keys with it because usually the keys are, I mean, the keys are a huge, a huge indicator anyways, but I should do that where I lock them together. Um, but I was going to say is I think at the end of the day, what I would recommend too is like, don't be a douchebag when you go through TSA, right?
Yeah.
Like those guys are just trying to do their jobs. And like, I always see it on Facebook of like all these guys in our community, they like flexing or like, talking like, dude, I haven't had one bad TSA experience. And I mean, I've traveled probably close to 100 times between classes and matches.
Yeah.
Right. And there's been a couple times where like, I think where my rifle didn't make it. Right. And that is just, I mean, bad timing or whatever the case might be. If I had to take three flights instead of two. But dude, yeah, my process is been very similar. Yeah. Don't use TSA locks.
Right.
And I typically only need two locks. As long as you're not able to get a finger in there, they're okay. But Ryan Diagostino made a good point. Is he brings extra two locks with his in his bag, just in case he loses locks or whatever. He has an extra spare in his bag. And then, do you AirTag your cases?
So I actually have been meaning to do that for the last 2 flights that I've been on, and I just keep forgetting. But I do want to do that. And then a quick story on why. So last year when I shot K&M, dude, it was just an absolute cluster of. I got to LAX. Admittedly, a little bit too late. It's Memorial Weekend, and I didn't anticipate that many people being there at 4 a.m. to fly out. So I missed my first flight. They rebooked me on another flight, and then when I got to my layover, then something else happened. That flight got delayed, and then they rerouted me to another one. So I ended up taking 4 different flights just to get into to Tennessee for K&M. But what ended up happening was my bags made it on the original flight, so they were waiting there. So like this whole time, like my rifle and my checked bag are like sitting in. I flew into Nashville, and they're sitting in Nashville. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in like Austin for my last leg. Like, okay, tight, dude. And I that was the first time that had ever happened to me, and the whole time I'm there just like absolutely like pooping my pants, just thinking like, dude, okay, please let them be on the right flight at the right place, and like nobody accidentally or like purposely just like pick up these random bags over there, because I am like 4 or 5 hours behind my bags now. And so after that, I was like, dude, I have to AirTag my bags, so at least I can track them and say, okay, they're still at this airport, or they're over here, they're over there. So I have AirTags. I'm actually going to do that for Frostbite. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, so I do need to do that for sure.
Yeah, I started getting AirTags a few years ago, and they've definitely been. It's just a peace of mind, if anything, right? It's just is if anything. So cool. Well, dude, I'm excited for you. I'm sure we'll connect before Frostbite, and maybe we can aim to do a follow up on your podcast for the next podcast after Frostbite. Do some after actions. Are you gonna trigger cam and vlog
you know
it?
it. You know it, baby. You know
Cool.
it.
Cool.
Do it for the
Cool.
content.
Yeah, for sure. Have you dropped any videos lately on your personal page?
I have not, but
Dang,
I know. But I'm actually almost done editing part 3 of the big scope review. For those of you that have also been watching that, part 3 should be out. Actually, it'll probably be out before this drops, because I'm gonna finish editing that today, and then I'll either put it up tonight, or maybe I'll wait till tomorrow to put it up. So,
Cool.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and then Frostbite footage.
Yeah. If you guys see Will at Frostbite, say what's up to him. Take a picture. let us get some content for Dope Talk. I've gotten a lot of messages about the podcast.
Yeah.
It's dope, obviously. But yeah, looking forward to seeing some footage from the match, seeing how you were able to weather the storm or the cold. I saw you got some gloves.
Yeah. I got heated gloves, heated socks, and a heated vest. Dude, I come on, man. I'm a Southern California kid. I'm not ready for 9 degrees, snow or not. I'm not ready for the cold. So I gotta figure it out.
Yeah. So cool, man. Well, good luck this week. I'll be thinking about you. I'll be just like you, when I'm at a match is on Sunday, be like, or even Saturday evening, just checking scores. So
yeah, buddy.
Cool, dude. And for everyone else, let us know what you think about the podcast. Cruise around. If you're new to the podcast, check out episode 1 and 2, and let us know, if you like this episode, what you want to hear about. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. And remember, hard dope's the best dope.
Yeah.
I think we can swap it around. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll just try a different one every time until something sticks.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. All right. Thanks, Will.
Later.